Think of a memory you cherish. Perhaps it's the day you learned to ride a bike, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the slight wobble before you found your balance. Or maybe it's the memory of your first love, the exact words spoken, the feeling of a hand in yours. Hold that image in your mind. See its details, feel its emotions. Now, what if I told you that a part of that memory, maybe even a large part of it, is a lie? This isn't to say you are a liar. It's to ask a much more fundamental question. Can you trust your own memory? We tend to think of our minds as perfect recording devices. We imagine our memories are like video files stored neatly on a hard drive, waiting to be played back in perfect fidelity. We believe that what we remember is what actually happened. But what if that entire metaphor is wrong? What if memory isn't a library of facts but a storyteller, weaving tales based on fragments of the past? To understand this, we first need to change how we think about the brain itself. A memory isn't a single thing stored in a single place. It is a pattern of connections, a web of neurons firing together across different regions of your brain. The process begins with encoding. When you experience an event, your brain doesn't capture a perfect, objective snapshot. Instead, it captures sensory inputs, sights, sounds, smells, and filters them through the lens of your attention, your emotions, and your existing knowledge of the world. If you are frightened, your brain will prioritize information related to the threat. If you are happy, you'll focus on the positive. From the very first moment, your memory is not a recording of reality, but a subjective interpretation of it. Once encoded, the memory is stored. This is called consolidation. But again, it's not filed away in a dusty cabinet. It's a process of strengthening the synaptic connections between the neurons that form the memory trace. Over time, this web becomes more stable. But here is where things get truly strange. The act of remembering is not a simple playback. It is an act of creation. Every time you recall a memory, your brain doesn't just retrieve it. It actively rebuilds it from the disparate pieces stored across your neural network. It's like a paleontologist reassembling a dinosaur skeleton from scattered bones. Gaps are filled in, details are inferred, and in this moment of reconstruction, the memory becomes fragile, unstable, and incredibly vulnerable to change. This process is known as reconsolidation. Once you are done with the memory, the brain has to save it all over again. And just like saving a new version of a document, edits can be made. Imagine you remember a heated argument with a friend years ago. The first time you recall it, you might remember the harsh words and the feeling of anger. But a week later, you talk to a mutual friend who offers a different perspective. The next time you access that memory of the argument, your brain might unconsciously incorporate this new information. The sharp edges of the memory might soften. You might now remember a tone of regret in your friend's voice that wasn't there before. You haven't deliberately falsified your memory. Your brain has simply updated the file to create a more coherent and perhaps more useful narrative. It's a constant, silent editing process that happens every time we look back. In short, your past is not set in stone. It's a living document, and you are its unwitting editor. The evidence for this malleability is as fascinating as it is unsettling. In the 1970s, a cognitive psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus began a series of experiments that would change our understanding of memory forever. In one of her most famous studies, she showed participants a video of a car accident. Afterward, she asked them questions about what they had seen, but she changed a single, critical word. To one group, she asked, about how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? To another group, she asked, about how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? The results were striking. The group that heard the word smashed estimated the cars were going significantly faster than the group that heard hit. But it didn't stop there. A week later, Loftus asked the same participants if they remembered seeing any broken glass in the video. There was no broken glass. Yet, for the group who heard the violent verb smashed, more than twice as many people falsely remembered seeing it. A single word was enough not only to alter their perception of speed, but to create a memory of something that never existed at all. This phenomenon is called the Misinformation Effect, and it demonstrates how easily our memories can be contaminated by suggestion, new information, or even our own imagination. But what if it goes further? What if an entire memory, complex and emotional, could be planted in your mind? In another landmark study, Loftus and her colleague Jim Cohen managed to do just that. They contacted the families of participants and gathered several real childhood stories. Then, they fabricated a fourth story, a detailed account of the participant being lost in a shopping mall at the age of 5, crying, being found by an elderly person, and reunited with their family. When presented with the four stories, 3 real, 1 fake, a surprising number of participants not only accepted the false, lost in the mall story as true, but began to embellish it with their own invented details. They would remember the old woman's kind face, or the feeling of panic. Their consciousness had accepted a piece of fiction and seamlessly woven it into the tapestry of their own life story. So, what does this all mean? Is our brain simply a faulty machine, a hopelessly unreliable narrator of our own lives? It turns out, this isn't a bug, it's a feature. To understand why, we need to think about the purpose of memory from the perspective of evolution. Over billions of years, life on Earth has been shaped by one primary directive: survival. And for a complex species like humanity, survival isn't just about reacting to the present, it's about predicting the future. Memory isn't designed to be a perfect archive of the past. It's a tool for foresight. Its primary job is to take past experiences, extract the important lessons, and use them to build predictive models of the world. For this to work, memory needs to be flexible. It needs to be able to update itself with new information. Imagine an early human ancestor who narrowly escapes a predator near a particular river bend. Remembering the exact shape of the clouds on that day is useless. What's crucial is remembering the gist of the event. This area is dangerous. If our ancestor later learns that the predator has moved its den, their brain needs to update that memory. The old danger tag on that location needs to be modified or removed. A rigid, unchanging memory would be a liability, leading our ancestor to avoid a now safe water source or walk blindly into a new danger zone. Essentially, our brain trades pristine accuracy for adaptive flexibility. It sacrifices the literal truth of the past to give us a more useful guide for the future. The misinformation effect and the creation of false memories are the unintended side effects of this incredibly powerful system of learning and updating. Our memory's so-called flaw is what allows us to learn from our mistakes, to change our minds, and to adapt to a constantly changing world. This fallibility manifests in ways we experience every day. Think about flashbulb memories. These are the incredibly vivid, detailed memories we have of shocking, emotional events, like where you were when you heard about a national tragedy, or the moment you received life-altering news. We feel absolutely certain about these memories. The emotional surge at the time of the event acts like a save button, telling our brain that this moment is important. We can recall the sights, the sounds, even the smells, with what feels like perfect clarity. But evidence suggests that even these powerful memories are not immune to distortion. Studies that have tracked people's memories of public tragedies over time show that details change, twist, and are forgotten, even as a person's confidence in their memory remains unshakably high. You might be certain you heard the news on television, but records might show you were told by a friend hours later. The emotional tag makes the memory feel true, but it doesn't protect it from the same reconstructive process that affects all our other memories. This has profound implications. In the justice system, eyewitness testimony has long been considered a pillar of evidence, but how can we trust it, knowing what we know now? A confident witness can point to a suspect and say with absolute certainty, "That's the person I saw." But their memory could have been subtly contaminated by a leading question from a police officer, a photo they saw in the news, or simply their brain's own process of filling in the gaps of a stressful, chaotic event. The consequences of this are not abstract. They are measured in years of wrongful imprisonment. And in our own lives, consider the arguments that fracture relationships. So often they are built on two people holding entirely different, yet equally sincere, memories of the same conversation or event. We call one person a liar, but it's far more likely that two separate brains have simply reconstructed two different versions of the past. Each person is remembering their own subjective truth, a story edited by their own emotions and biases. Ultimately, this brings us to the core of our own identity. If we are the sum of our experiences, and our memories of those experiences are not stable, what does that say about our sense of self? The narrative you hold about your own life, your triumphs, your failures, your first loves, your deepest regrets, is not a static history. It is a story you are co-authoring with your own brain, and it is revised with every telling. The person you were 5 years ago doesn't just exist in the past. They are being actively reimagined by the person you are today. So, can you trust your memory? The answer is a complicated no. You cannot trust it to be a faithful record of objective reality, but you can trust it to do what it evolved to do, to build a version of the past that helps your consciousness navigate the present. It's a creative partner, not a passive recorder. Your memories are not a window looking back into a finished room. They are the raw material, the wood, the nails, the paint, that your mind uses every single day to construct the person you are right now. If you enjoy exploring the nature of your own mind, consider subscribing for more.